Needed. Hello and good morning. Happy St. Patrick's Day. It is a little chilly here in Greenwich, Connecticut. And today I'm absolutely delighted to welcome us via Zoom, Austin and Allison McChord. They have done something extraordinary for our state, our community, and they are developing something called Manresa Wilds. So welcome, Allison. Welcome, Austin. And would one of you start with what was the inspiration for this particular effort? Because it is really mind blowing. It's huge.
Allison, you want to tell the story?
Sure. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
We we have a home in Norwalk, and one beautiful summer day, we went kayaking, and we're sort of like along the edge of Manresa, and I think it was me who said, I like wish we could pull up our boats. I wish we could get out and explore. I wish it was a park. How cool would it be if it was a park? And so that was maybe like the first spark, but then Austin was the one who sort of over dinner one night was like, "Are you okay if I investigate this a little bit? Like, can I ask around and see like if this is something we could do?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Kind of thinking that probably nothing would come of it. And then I don't know, like a month or two later, he came back and was like, "I think we could do it." And so that's kind of how it started.
Oh my goodness. Austin, how did you go about finding the information you needed to it? And how did you come up with the big idea of like buying it and changing the whole
I,
idea of
I
what
mean, I
it
think,
is?
you know, big ideas always happen, like a lot of little ideas at a time. And
Mm-hmm.
so it started just with like, hey, we know the site is abandoned. Like we have a house on the water that looks at this. And reached out to a friend of mine that was a realtor and he dug up the info and then was like, hey, here's the state of where the property is. And it's actually already been sold to a private equity firm, but you might be able to buy it from them before they do anything. And so we called the private equity firm and we were curious about it. And they were like, hey, do you want to come take a tour? And that alone was like, yes, absolutely. I want to go and check it out. And so then kind of like after seeing the site, just sort of fell in love with it and was like, yeah, this is a project that we really want to do and turn into reality. And then I think the journey to where it is now involves, an ever expanding circle. And so in the beginning, it was just Allison and I, and then we found kind of the consultants and the landscape architects that really are sort of leading us through the whole project. And they helped us really dream appropriately to the size of the site. And from there, it's grown into what it is. But if you had asked us, on that kayak ride, if we ever imagined it would become this, that's far beyond our wildest dreams.
It is truly, I haven't personally been there, but I was lucky enough to get to
Oh,
your
you gotta go.
yeah, well, next thing I'll get you guys to do bring me on a tour. But I was able to go to one of your most recent presentation to the public, getting information and feedback, et cetera. And I was really quite impressed on so many levels. The two of you have thought through so much. But it kind of would just go back a little bit. Allison or Austin, were either of your families involved in nature conservancy along the way? Did you have that sort of in your DNA to start with?
I think I mean, nothing major. I mean, my family probably donated to the Nature Conservancy, like people
Mm-hmm.
do. You get the flyer in the mail and maybe send in some money, but not in any major way. I just think I was always kind of a nature lover and an animal nut, and Austin is the same way. We just love being out in nature and seeing wildlife, and I think it's just something we're both passionate about.
Mm-hmm. So a thing that struck me is there's a huge building on that land that I guess I didn't have an appreciation for or an understanding of until I saw your presentation. But it's pretty incredible just talking about the amount of concrete and steel and whatnot. Austin, do you want to address what you're going to do with that and how you're going to transform it into a space that the public can use?
I mean, I think, a lot of people at first glance assume, this is an eyesore. And I think that as
Mhm.
we dug into it, really saw that like this is an incredible asset. And there's a ton of embodied carbon in the structure. And so, how do we take this structure that's actually in pretty good shape and turn it around to serve the community? And that transformation from, generating electricity to sort of generating connection to the environment and
Mhm.
being this place where the community can gather um, is really cool. And we walk the structure. And like if you go on a tour, anybody who goes on a tour, like we'll take you all through the building, you can see it is absolutely cavernous. And the spaces you can imagine, whether it's a Christmas market or a science fair or
Mm.
somebody having a wedding or all these different things, there's just so many different ways that, this structure could go and like serve, the people. And so this idea that we could transform it is awesome. And our ability to connect it with sort of an educational mission has been huge. And like so many partners are like, oh my gosh, this space is so one of a kind. And so to be able to put it to that kind of use is awesome.
It was, I also, you guys were talking about the generators that were in there, these enormous machines, and you're going to try to maintain or keep some parts of them so people understand what was there. I just love that you're maintaining, sort of the idea of what the purpose was originally and then today. It's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
I think telling the story of the building is important, and it's not how we generate electricity now. You would not build a modern power plant that looks like that now, but you know these are there, and like this is how this stuff used to work, and especially to capture sort of the seriousness of the people who work there. And you kind of always are like, oh, it's the big bad power company, but the people who are actually involved in converting the coal into electricity took their job really seriously and in trying to do as best they could with the technology that they had. And that comes through in the building and in their work. And one of the big things that we did is that when we actually got the site, everything was just kind of left in the building, like someone was going to come back to work, and they just kind of like
Easy.
closed the door. And so we hired an archivist and we scanned everything. And so we have terabytes and terabytes of all of the documents and logs and everything that happened there and all the sort of personal artifacts and different pieces. And so we'll really be able to sort of tell the story of what happened there, which I think, to us now is not that exciting. But the further into the future you get, people will be like, wow, I can't believe it used to work that way. And so it'll be pretty neat that we've been able to capture all of that.
Well, that really struck me for both of your sort of vision of what's there is there's appreciation and honoring what has happened in the past, maintaining it and then growing it and pivoting to a place where people really kind of come and enjoy. Now, another thing that I was just really fascinated by was your beach area. It wasn't just your average sandy beach. I kind of like the idea that it was sort of rocky. Allison, you want to talk about sort of your vision of the area where you can come and go from the water?
Yeah, I think Austin and I both grew up in New England and have been to sort of more naturalized New England locations, but you also see these sort of like urban beach setups where it's, parking lot, lawn, sand, and they sort of lack the diversity and the interest that a lot of the naturalized coastal edges have. So when we were thinking about the beach that we were going to create, we wanted it to feel like it was part of the area naturally. Even though there'll be a lot of manpower that goes into making it, we wanted it to feel like it was, tied to the islands that are just offshore. And so we're really leaning into sort of like the type of sand should resemble the type of sand that's there. The, geometry of the beach should resemble the beaches there. The planting should be native, just so it feels a little more like a beach that you found rather than a beach that was uh, made by humans.
Mhm.
And that's so that the beach is like that, but then there's also just so much diverse coastal edge happening. So there's going to
Mhm.
be, marshland, there's going to be these sort of like rocky edges, tide pools, these little baby marshes called pocket marshes. And so we're really trying to make it so that as you move around the site, it's not, again, that typical sandy beach. It's going to offer the diversity that the sound has naturally.
I love it. Well, you mentioned kayaking when you first got started, and I did notice that during your process, and again, I was very impressed by your team. They'd taken input, and one of the things where people are saying we need more space to bring our kayaks up to pull up is talk to me more about how you designed that and conceptualize that process.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that the site is pretty unique in that we have a huge berth that is designed to take a coal barge or an oil tanker. And so the
So cool.
ability to repurpose that is awesome. And so there's space to swim, there's space for kayaks or sailboats, and then there'll even be space for people to, take their boat and come visit for the day. And so putting all those pieces together and really being able to activate that definitely provides a lot more access to the water and brings people closer to the whole Norwalk Island archipelago, that they'll be able to get out easier and go visit some of those other islands, which are also parks.
I was very impressed with the young woman who's your landscaper or the landscape architect group. And she was talking about different rooms relative to trees and forestry, et cetera. And it, again, blew me away. I was like, wow, what great planning. Did one of you go and speak to that and where that inspiration came from?
So that's in the Northern Forest, which is the first phase that's going to open. We're hoping early 2027 it'll be accessible to the public. And the Northern Forest is tricky from a rehabilitation standpoint because the way to make it safer is to put fill on top, but if you put fill, you kill all the trees. And so we wanted to create space that could be accessible, but you have to do it sort of like very strategically. And so Scape, the landscape architects who are brilliant, sort of identified these areas on the site that either had, unhealthy pockets of trees or needed like additional rehabilitation. And so because there was going to be more work needed there anyway, they sort of created these rooms that we're calling them. And so one of them is dedicated to gathering. So it'll be a little more active. There'll be places to, have a picnic or, if you want to do yoga in the park or things like that. One is I'm sorry, I have pregnancy brain.
Eco, like the
The
eco
ecology
pocket.
pocket. Sorry, they call it the eco pocket. And that one is large enough that it's going to have taller grasses, and it's big enough that it can actually support, be a habitat for smaller animals, smaller birds, insects. And then there is the Learn Pocket, which is a little more touched, but we'll have sort of picnic tables and an amphitheater and places for school groups to gather and sort of like reconvene and discuss things from their site visit.
That's
And I think
amazing.
a lot of what is going on is that we hired an incredible firm to go out and study all of the wildlife that exists there now, and came back with a full list of these are all the species and this is what's going on, and it's everything, all the plant life and pretty much anything that breathes. Like we've got to count, and so. The idea is then how can we design these new spaces to enhance the native species, enhance what belongs there, make sure that we're creating better, stronger habitats for that. And you see that not only in the northern forest, but across the whole park and all the different areas. And it's just amazing how much and how Scape sort of figured out how to connect all these pieces together, and build this beautiful interlinked ecosystem, that we think is going to be incredible.
I was very impressed by every part of your teams between your landscape architecture to the architect to Pansy, your PR person. Everybody's just on it and really excited. The energy is so clear. It's absolutely beautiful. So you mentioned an educational component to all of this. Who are you partnering with and what is that going to look like?
So we've been working with a variety of different partners, at the national level. We've been working with Woods Hole, and they're continuing to build out sort of more stuff, but they have a whole sensor suite on site, and they've got a new focus around sort of coastal stuff that's going on. And typically, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute have been deep water, but now they really
Mm.
want to be paying more attention to the coastal stuff. So the site is very interesting to them. We've been working with Wesleyan and Sacred Heart on the university side. And then also in the Norwalk area, obviously the Maritime Aquarium, like it makes perfect sense for us to work with them. And I don't want to get ahead of any of our partners, but we have some more announcements there that will
Mm.
come in the next few months, where they're going to go over sort of more specifically what their involvement is. But they're really excited, and this fact that we can integrate all these pieces together is awesome, and that the park doesn't just stand out and it's not connected.
It's really cool. And I did notice one of the slides, one of the architects put a little submarine in the building. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. So you might have
Yeah.
submersibles.
Potentially, and it's certainly like an area that the deep water berth is very interesting to Woods Hole, and having a coastal research station where they could work on ROVs and things like that, is very interesting to them. And it's a case where, like, again, the building is just uniquely well suited for that kind of stuff, in a way that almost nothing else would be.
Yeah, it's really cool. So I do know one of the concerns from the community was parking, traffic. There's just one road in. How are you handling all that?
So, I mean, couple of pieces. One, and first and foremost, like we would love for you to come to the site by any means that isn't your personal car. So like that's the first and foremost overarching message. And we're working and making sure that there's ample bike racks and, easy pedestrian access. Um, the nice part is that we're really not that far from the downtown sort of Sono core. And so for us to be able to run shuttles from the train station or shuttles from sort of the core parking garages that exist there that have tremendous capacity is not very hard, and that journey is not very long. And then on the parking side, we want to make sure that we build out only what the infrastructure can support, and that we're going to work closely and use basically a whole bunch of technology solutions to make sure that people get reservations, and that it's managed that way. And so we'll have a good understanding of what the traffic impacts are and be able to control them easily.
Mm. Okay, anybody who's tuning in right now, the show is Trevor and Friends. I'm Trevor Crow. Right now, I'm on the air with Allison and Austin McChord. We're discussing Manresa Wilds, which is an island the two of them have bought and are now in the process of transforming into a place where the community can gather and study and learn and grow together. And actually, I really wanted to talk a little bit about that pool because it's really beautiful. And Allison, were you part of that process? Are you a pool person, or like, because I love that you can go to the beach, but you also have another place to swim?
I am actually very like fairly recently big into swimming.
Aha.
So I, grew up on the water, but didn't really ever have formal swim lessons. And as an adult, took swim lessons, and now I'm obsessed with like lap swimming.
Mm.
And so I that was something I was really pushing for in the design. I think as we went through community, feedback, we heard a little bit that maybe it felt the original scheme we had was a little intense. But now we have this very cool lap pool sort of like wedged between the building and the smokestack. And the architects have come up with this amazing concept for this sort of circular beach bar that wraps the smokestack at the base level. And then as you move up, it becomes a ramp that you could travel up, and turns into a high dive into the pool, which seems really cool.
It
A
looks
little
really
scary for me. Like, I'm not sure I'm jumping off the 16-foot high dive, but I'm
cool.
excited for other people to sort of test their mettle and try it.
I was a big proponent of the high dive, and I think that like having those few things that you're like, man, I can't believe they did this, or like these things are very rare,
Yeah,
is
really
is
good.
cool, and you got to take a few risks here and there.
Yeah, it looks again, everything about this project is really breathtaking and incredible. And I do want people out there to listen and understand what you're doing is so beautiful for our area. You've been very successful. You're taking your capabilities, your thoughts, your treasure, and you're applying it to what we have right here. And I can't tell you how appreciative I am, but I think overall the community probably is. Janet Wiggins sitting next to me, she's nodding as well. Big thumbs up. So like tell me a little bit about the cost and how you keep this going over the next generations, because it will be quite an upkeep and you might be wanting to do new things over time. How are you handling all that? Because this is a huge investment.
Well, so first and foremost, we're putting in the dollars to make this happen and get it built. And we constantly talk about like the number one thing is like build the park. And so like we're pushing to make that happen. And we also took a stance of getting started there in the sense that we're gonna do and cover all the remediation without any state or federal or city money, and do the work to make the site safe for the next generations to come. And that investment is luckily a thing that you do once, and like we're good for the next, 80 to 100 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I think is the most important part. As we get further into like now we've delivered this incredible park, Allison and I intend to endow the park to ensure that it has enough resources to exist in perpetuity. But at the same time, it's interesting, right? Because you want to fund and make all this happen, but it's also very important that the park not just be Allison and Austin,
Mm-hmm.
but instead, be a broader thing that the people from the community are involved in. And so there'll be an ability for people to be members or to contribute. And a lot of it is that there's still room to do more on the site, 50 years down the road or 30 years down the road. And we're excited that, hopefully other people will fall in love with the site the same way that we have, and be lucky enough to be able to contribute to it and continue to evolve the park over time.
So if anybody listening right now would like to learn more, get involved, where do they go? How do they find out more about you?
ManresaWilds.org.
ManresaWilds.org. Okay. And is there a way to volunteer already, or this is a few years down the road?
Absolutely.
Oh, we're all already. Okay, good.
Yes.
And so go ahead.
Now that the snow has melted, like the tour season is getting started, and the best way to like really fall in love with the place is to go visit. And that was very important to us to like, let's take people through the site, let's do what we need to do to make it safe enough that we can show what this can offer. And so I would encourage everyone listening, please come visit. And you can sign up for tours on the website. And then on the volunteer side, like, we need helpers associated with the tours. We also do sort of beach cleanup, as well as a bunch of environmental tracking around making sure that, we're tracking all the wildlife, everything's going well there. And so there's lots of opportunities to get involved. And then, I mean, it really is just how nerdy do you want to go? Because we could take you down all the documents and archives and, all of that also needs love and, looking for help there too.
Great message. Again, anybody listening right now, we're talking to Allison and Austin McChord. They are developing Manresa Wilds, which is an island off of the coast of Norwalk. This is going to be a multi-year process, correct? It's going to be fully open, 2032?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're trying to go as fast as we can, but 2032 is that's speed mode. And frankly, for these kinds of projects, that's still considered incredibly aggressive. And if anybody's familiar with like the little island off of New York that was built out on that pier, that took 25 years. So we're moving to do this as quickly as we can. And frankly, part of the benefits there, like we have an incredible team around us, and we've had great support from the city and state in helping us move forward.
We have like 20 seconds left. Allison, is there just one last sort of thing you want to say to wrap up the show? Anything about it that is so important to you personally?
I think just the biggest thing is we're so excited to be giving this land back to the public to use, and giving it back healthy and remediated. I think it's, when you first look at it, you think, oh, there's, if you could just let it be as it is, but then you learn very quickly it's very complicated and there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I think just being able to, say, come here, see the wildlife, see the edge, enjoy yourself. I think it's going to be great.
It's incredible. Well, thank you both so much for being on the show. This is Trevor Crow. The show is Trevor and Friends. You're listening to WGCH, and we'll be right back.